It starts with a question, not which module should I buy or how much will it cost me, but why? Why modular? Because for me, music has always been about exploration. It's how I process the world and how I stay grounded. When I discovered modular, it wasn't about intelligence or complexity, it was about presence. I finally had a system that made my thought process visible in sound. A way to interact with music that felt less like using a tool and more like shaping something alive in real time. It didn't start with a $3,000 case and a wall of blinking lights. It started with curiosity. I'm deep in DAWs, plugins, presets. I'm comfortable. But over time, that comfort begins to feel like repetition. Sometimes I'm scrolling more than I'm creating, choosing from hundreds of options instead of just committing to one. So that's the first reason. Modular forces you to commit. You patch something and that's your signal path. You can't just load up 5 reverb chains and decide later. You build it, you shape it, and you live with the results. There's something incredibly grounding about that. Creative limitations, when chosen, aren't limitations at all. They're structure. And structure is what makes flow possible. In DAW-based sessions, I often find myself stacking multiple reverbs just to get the sound to feel wide enough. In modular, I might be working with 3 voices and yet somehow the sound feels bigger. Because everything is intentional. Every modulation has a source and a purpose. That alone has transformed how I approach production in general. The second reason is tactility. I work in a digital world. So much of what I do is on screen, clicking, dragging, and automating. But modular makes you move. Your hands are on knobs, cables, and panels. You don't just click to change something, you reach for it. You feel the shift in the room as a drone slowly unfolds because you're physically part of it. And when you're in that zone, time disappears. That's not romanticism, that's a physical reality of a flow state that modular helps facilitate. I've had sessions where I intended to patch for 20 minutes and ended up lost for 3 hours. Not because I was tweaking endlessly, but because every gesture mattered. That's a completely different kind of engagement than dragging samples into a timeline. It becomes kinetic, like playing an instrument, not programming one. Third, modular is personal. No 2 systems are the same. Your rack is a mirror of how you think and how you approach sound. I built mine slowly, piece by piece, with intention. Some modules I chose because they're weird, others because they're reliable. But each one says something about how I want to interact with the music. Take something like Make Noise Mass. At first, it confused me. The layout was unfamiliar, almost abstract. But once I learned it, it changed how I thought about modulation. Now I can't imagine my system without it. It's not just a utility, it's a brain inside of the case. It's that kind of relationship with gear that doesn't happen overnight. But that's why modular becomes so personal. These modules start to feel like old friends. You know how they'll behave. You know what happens when you push them too far. And that knowledge builds real confidence. And unlike a DAW template, you can't just hit undo. You have to learn your instrument, which brings me to my 4th point. It makes you listen differently. In modular, sound becomes physical. You hear what modulation feels like. You discover that control voltage isn't just voltage, it's behavior. It's cause and effect. And when you build a patch, you're not just thinking in terms of melody or harmony, but movement, depth, instability. That shift in perspective seeps into everything else you do. I've taken ideas born from a Krell patch and applied them in ways that shaped an entire ambient album. And let's be honest, modular challenges you to listen. There's no visual representation of the waveform, no piano roll to hide behind. You dial in a filter and you hear it. You don't just look at the numbers, you trust your ears again. I think that's something digital workflows slowly condition out of us, and modular brings it back in a big way. And finally, the 5th reason, modular teaches patience. You don't just sit down and bang out a track. You build a system, and sometimes it doesn't work the way you thought it would. Sometimes the patch collapses. Sometimes it sounds like garbage. But if you sit with that and keep exploring, what you'll find on the other side is often better than what you originally had in mind. I've had entire days where I tore down and rebuilt the patch 5 times before I found something worth keeping. And yet, I wasn't frustrated. That process was the music. It's like sculpting sound from air. There's no shortcut to that experience. And with patience comes discovery. Accidents become intentions. A modulation you didn't plan becomes the soul of a track. And those moments, those unexpected glimmers, are some of the most rewarding I've ever had in music. So why modular? Because it's not about gear. It's about connection between intention and sound, between your ideas and the electricity that brings them to life. And this channel is where I'm going to share that process, the patches that didn't work and the discoveries that I made along the way, the modules that surprised me and the techniques that took time to internalize, and the moments, rare but unforgettable, when it all locks into place. That's why. Welcome to Signs of Life Modular.